And welcome in, everybody, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world. This is Coast to Coast. And, of course, we got the Philly sports guy and stat guy. How you guys doing?
I'm living the dream.
I mean, what do all three of us have in common? We didn't lose this week.
If you notice, I mean, we didn't play, so
we still didn't lose.
I mean, true. And Jay is supposed to be showing up at some point, but we'll see.
I mean, we've been
saying that. He's there. Let's do a check-in on Jay, shall we?
Well, his screen is there, but he is not.
There we go. That's awesome. That looks like the Cowboys yesterday.
Well, in his defense, that screen is what the Cowboys have said all year. They're going to show up eventually, but they're still not here.
Yeah, it's just a jersey with nobody in it. Oh, man.
Go back to that screen one more time.
All right. There you go.
You have the jersey. You have the other jersey. And then that big blank black screen right there is the stare that Jerry Jones has watching his team right now.
Man, he is going through it.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was doing. I was literally kind of like in front of him down in row one. If anybody watched the game, you guys might have seen that. I was in between the Dallas Cowboys superfan and Santa Claus.
Oh, funny.
Which makes it really funny. But I kept turning around and yelling up to Jerry, I'm like, hey, Jerry, I love what you're doing to the team. I hope you live forever. People were not happy about that, but
yeah, no doubt.
It was funny.
Yeah, no, it's a grim outlook. And then, of course, his presser yesterday, he's like, I expected us to be better, and all the things you got to say. But you can tell he's kind of to his wit's end with this team, because he's like, he even says, I don't have the answer. Right? He's like, I could change some stuff, but I'm not sure if it would get better. So it, yeah.
There was a piece of me that thought that they would fire McCarthy after this game.
He won't.
Yeah, well, so that
means that they would make Zimmer the coach for the rest of the year, and I think just to protect McCarthy, because it's not McCarthy's fault.
I mean, yeah, like guys are just underperforming and getting hurt and whatever. I mean, it's, but there are like game decisions that are his fault that also haven't been great. But
yeah, like leaving number 21 in there all day. I tell you, number 21 was getting lit up. Every big pass play went against, I think his name is Carson.
Oh, okay.
And they finally pulled him with like 6 minutes left in the third quarter. And the guy next to me, so he's a friend of mine, and he's it's a Dallas Cowboys super fan. Mm-hmm. And he kept saying to me, he's like, I can't understand why they continually put him out there. He had the last game, he got lit the frig up. This game, he's getting lit the frig up. I don't understand why he is continually putting him out there. And I was just like, huh, that sucks.
It's the Mike Zimmer way, and he did that when he was in Minnesota. Like, Mike Zimmer has always had a core group of players that he likes, and that is the core group of players he will stick with no matter how much they're struggling. Like, you saw it in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson. When Justin Jefferson was drafted, Mike Zimmer didn't even play him until week 4. He got in like a couple snaps in week 2 and had a couple catches in week 2, but Mike Zimmer refused to play him until week 4 because he never plays rookies. And then all of a sudden, Ziggy Wolf, the owner of the Vikings, basically said, you're playing Jefferson. Like, I don't care how much you don't like playing rookies. You're playing him. So kind of Zimmer's like, fine, whatever. And it ended up working in Minnesota's favor that way.
Sure.
But the last 2 years in Minnesota, he had Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith, and Patrick Peterson, and a couple other guys on the defensive line that were like his 5 or 6 guys that he trusted. It didn't matter if they were getting lit up for 35 points per game. Those 5 guys would never come out of the lineup no matter how bad they're struggling, because that's just how Zimmer is, and that's the same thing with Dallas right now. The guys that he's starting on defense are the ones that he will trust, even if they're getting lit up the way they're getting lit up right now.
Well, that's what makes me think that they're going to continue to succeed this year.
I mean, they will. They're going to succeed to the point where they're going to get a top 10 pick, and depending on how bad it gets, they might even end up in the top 5.
Man, I don't know. Like this year is just weird though, because the teams at the top are continuing to get separation and some help, right? And the teams at the bottom just keep finding ways to just be terrible. So I don't know if they really move because of all the other bad teams.
Well, I mean, look at Carolina though. Carolina's got 2 wins in a row now, and they have 3 wins. So now you have what? It went from having 9 teams with 2 wins down to 7 this week. And like, if the Giants pick up another game, that gives them 3 wins, and it's like, I mean, the Cowboys really aren't that far off.
What makes you think the Giants get another win?
Because it's the NFL, and that's the way the NFL's been this year.
Yeah. It has it though? Because there's still 7 teams with 2 wins.
Yeah, a lot of those teams we didn't expect to have.
But there's like 11 teams with 3 wins.
Yeah. Like a lot of these teams that have 3 wins, I don't think we expected to have 3 wins. Some of the teams that have 2 wins, I don't think.
Let's think about that. 12 teams is a third of the league.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's like a lot of these.
Actually, more than a third. There's like 36 teams. There's only 32 teams.
Yeah, it's like
11 teams. 11 teams is already over a third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
40% of the league right now has 3 wins or less. And when you look at those 12 teams, probably 4, maybe 5 of them are kind of in the position we thought they would be in. But the rest of them are just not in the position where we thought they would be. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum. Nobody thought Washington would be where they are right now. Nobody thought the Vikings would be where they are right now. And a lot of people probably didn't think the Steelers would be as good as they are right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of teams on the good end of the spectrum where people didn't expect them to be in the position they are. And then the same thing on the other end.
No, I mean, like some of those teams you thought were going to be middling teams that are overperforming.
Yeah.
Right? Washington for sure. Pittsburgh, I thought was going to be kind of a middling team that is, obviously playing fantastic. You know what is kind of weird about the Steelers is they have yet to play a division game.
Same with the Chicago. Same with the Chicago Bears.
6 of the last 8 are division games.
Same with the Chicago Bears, who I guess was everyone's darling heading into the season, and now they're sitting at 4-5 with the toughest schedule left in the NFL, where they got the Lions twice, the Packers twice, the Vikings twice, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. They may not win another game the rest of the way.
It's entirely possible. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why everybody was so high on the Bears. Like, I thought they were going to be battling you guys for last.
Well, because of how easy their first 9 games were. They had the easiest schedule in the NFL the first 9 weeks. And a lot of people had them at like 6-3 through 9 games when you looked at how their schedule was.
Sure, but did they forget where the team is and who the team is?
Yeah, but the truth of the matter is as you named those other teams, 4 of those games weren't supposed to be very good. I mean, so it's like, you have to play. Obviously, you have to play Detroit and you have to play Green Bay, both which were playoff teams last year. But Minnesota was supposed to suck.
Exactly, and that was 2 more wins that
Minnesota was supposed to be. Yeah, it was supposed to be fourth in that division, and then Seattle was also supposed to suck.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a middling team at best.
And that's kind of why everyone thought the Bears are going to be a 9 or a 10 win team, because they're like, if they go 6-3 the first 9 games, which they lost to Houston, which everyone expected them to lose to Houston. Mm-hmm. They lost to Arizona, which a lot of people thought they would lose to Arizona because of just going out west or whatever. And then they had another loss in there that they expected to lose, but the other games they lost, nobody thought they were going to lose to Washington because nobody thought Washington was going to be in the position they were in this year. Obviously, nobody thought they were going to lose to the Patriots when the season started and they got crushed yesterday. So if they go 6-3, they figure they were going to sweep the Vikings, which puts them at 8 wins. And then Seattle again, that Pags was talking about. That's why everyone's like a 9-10 win Bear team probably has a shot to get that 7 seed. Now they might go 4-13 again, and yeah, that's the position that they're going to be in now.
Bye, Eberflus.
He should be gone.
New offensive coordinator.
He should be gone now. There is no, I understand the Bears have never fired a coach midseason before, but after watching them play yesterday, if there was ever a time to fire not only an offensive coordinator but a head coach midseason, now would be the time to do it for Chicago. Because at what point are you literally hurting Caleb Williams? You're practically getting him killed every time he's dropping back to pass right now. You're not doing anything to help his development, and you're hurting your team more by keeping Eberflus here.
Yeah, so it's exactly what they did to Justin Fields and Trubisky.
Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
Correct. I think he needs a new nail stylist.
I think he just needs to
Caleb Williams.
I just think he needs to fake an injury.
I mean, based on that offensive line play, he may not have to fake it.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying if he gets I mean, with the Packers defense and the Vikings defense the next 2 weeks, and knowing how much they get after the quarterback, if I'm Caleb Williams, I'm faking an injury. If I take a good shot in one of these 2 games, be like, no, my elbow hurts, my arm hurts, my back hurts. Like, just get me out of here, please.
I mean,
my Yahoo hurts. That's it.
Right.
I broke my index finger on my nail hand.
Nah, I mean, there is some crazy numbers in the way he has almost identical stats to Bryce Young through 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly a stat line I want to mirror.
No, and that's with a 4-game stretch where he had 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. When the Bears won 3 of those 4 games to get to 4-2. You take out that 4-game stretch, he's even worse than what Bryce Young was last year.
Well, yeah, that would get rid of every touchdown he's thrown.
I think he's got. Doesn't he have 12 though?
I thought he just had 9.
No, I think he's got 12. I think he's got 12 and 7 is what he has.
Maybe that stat line was before yesterday's games.
Yeah, he had like that 3-game stretch where the Bears won like 3 games in a row in 4 or 5 where he had 9 touchdowns and 1 pick. You take that stretch out, he's even worse than what Bryce Young was last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's terrible if you think about it because he has better weapons than Bryce does.
He does. He's much better weapons across the board at every level of the offense.
And about the same level of offensive line play. So can't even say that, Bryce has like some awesome offensive line. Their offensive line isn't good.
But I also said that he was going to be a bust, and I'm being proved more right than wrong.
Yeah, it was funny. They panned over to the benches, and you can tell they just are not enjoying being in Chicago.
No, yeah, you're right. So he's got 9 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So outside of those 3 games, he has not thrown a touchdown pass.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was like, I'm pretty sure I had that right.
Granted, in his defense, he also hasn't turned the ball over in like 3 weeks. So, I mean, he's taking care of the football, but I mean, he's on his backside more than he's upright anyways. So what chance does he have to turn it over? I
was going to say, is he really taking care of it, or is it just a lot of 3 and out and he doesn't have opportunity?
For the amount of shots that he's taking care of the football because he could easily be fumbling a lot of these shots that he's taking.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that, I guess.
Did anybody watch the Washington-Pittsburgh game?
Yeah.
I watched the end of it after the Minnesota game ended because I had both Minnesota and Washington around at the same time.
I watched a little bit of it in the beginning, but I couldn't get a chance to watch it. It looked like it was a little bit back and forth, and Washington had the lead towards the end.
Yeah, Washington was up 24-14 early in the third quarter, and Pittsburgh had to play catch-up.
Yeah, it was Washington's game to kind of lose, and they ended up with some really ill-timed drops. They had like 4 or 5 drops that were huge in this game. And then the defense came up short in just like key moments. Pickens made a ridiculous catch where he like spun backwards across his body and like jumped sideways to get it. And then
Mike Williams caught one of the patented Russell Wilson moon balls where it's just throwing higher up in the air than it is far. And he literally was like looking up in the air like this, waiting for it to fall in his hand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that one was like, it was a great throw, but that one was a lot on the defense where he had the deep coverage on it and then he got burned. So, I mean, you just get exposed on that.
And I think the single biggest reason why Pittsburgh won this game was they did not let Jaden Daniels run. He had 4 carries for 15 yards rushing in this game. Like, Pittsburgh literally contained him from running and forced him to throw the ball, which he still completed over 65% of his passes for like 220 yards. So he threw the ball well enough to win that game. It's just that Pittsburgh was not going to let him beat them with his legs. And that's ultimately why they won that game, because they took that dimension away from him.
Well, I don't know if I would say that's why they won the game. I would say some of those defensive letdowns is why they won.
Yeah, that too. But you have to think, if Daniels is using his legs more, how many times does he do that in the fourth quarter to extend drives possibly? And then if you extend drives, that takes time off the clock, and that gives Pittsburgh less of a chance to get back on offense because there's a lot of 3rd down and 4 plays where a normal week, Daniels probably tucks that and goes, but based on how Pittsburgh was defending him, he didn't have those same running lanes where he could tuck it and go.
Yeah, but I mean, keep in mind, those Steelers scores were off of big plays.
Yeah.
They don't require a lot of time. So even if he's chewing up the clock, if everything else still goes the same way, I mean, it's a deep strike. It requires, 20 seconds on the clock. It's not exactly, what the other team is doing in that instance doesn't matter. Now, if you need methodical drives to get down there, sure, the other team chewing up the clock matters. But if you're just deep strike and you're in, I mean, you can lose the time of possession and win games.
Mm-hmm.
I think your Facebook link might be frozen there, Bags.
Mine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because on my end, it just says
means.
Facebook user generically.
No, I got a message from that.
Oh, okay.
That it's saying that it's having that StreamYard's having an issue.
Yeah, I got the same thing when I logged in too.
Gotcha. Perfect.
So,
Well, at least
it
there's
says
always.
it's only going to come as Facebook user, not anything else.
Huh, that's very weird.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
you know what I got to see yesterday?
What's that?
Kenny Pickett do a brotherly shove, a tush push,
Oh,
and he made it. And
Yeah.
he made it. I tell you, it was probably one of the longest running tush pushes that I'd seen. Like it took like 7 seconds for him to get over the line. Like
Oh, that's
the referees, it was almost like the refs didn't want to blow the play dead because they wanted him to get over the line so that they didn't have to run another play. But it was literally like they ran that. It was a 4th and 1 with like 48 seconds left, and they ran it, and it literally took that play took 8 seconds to finally to get across the line.
yeah. That
So
that
I
was
was
definitely refs trying to go home, because otherwise, especially with a game that was way out of reach, because otherwise they
Right.
would have blown that dead. Like if you're
You
stood
know,
up.
I had said that I thought that the defense was going to score 14 points, or score like 2 touchdowns, and they didn't, and that would have been the difference. I thought we were going to put a 50 spot on this team, and if the defense actually did there was a fumble that only wound up into a field goal. That's what made it 34. But he couldn't get in the end zone. And then there was another, Cooper DeJean wound up having a run back on a punt that I thought he could have broken it. He cut it inside, but he cut it outside and wound up having to go out of bounds. It was a good day for the Eagles.
Yeah, you got back in first
Not a
place.
very good day for the Cowboys.
You got back in first place with that win.
Yes, we did.
And second place.
And
in the NFC.
now is really the big challenge. Now's the big challenge here. We are going up against Washington on Thursday.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
You know,
gonna be a huge game.
The fact that Washington, that is a huge monster game. And that game will set the tone for the rest of the season.
For sure.
Well, yeah, because if Philly wins, they have a 3-game lead.
Correct.
Because you'll have 2 games in hand with the loss plus the tiebreaker, so you will have a 3-game lead over Washington because the Giants and Dallas are out of it. So literally, like this game right now for Philly, a win by Philly here is pretty much. I'm not going to say it
It
wraps up.
doesn't
the division,
cement
but
it. Doesn't cement it, but it
puts them in the
definitely puts
driver's
us in the driver's seat.
versus Washington, a win by them, they get back in the first place, but they would have the same amount of losses as Philly, and they would hold the tiebreaker. So, like, Washington would still not have a lot of room for error versus Philly would have.
That would go back to the second game.
Yeah, versus Philly would have a little bit of error where even if they had a game that they should have won that they lost, it wouldn't hurt them because they would have that 3-game lead in hand.
Which is what I think about when I look at that Rams game. When I look at the schedule and I look at how they're going to be, that Rams game becomes a little bit of a trap game. for the Eagles. Because Baltimore that we're going to be playing against, and it's like the Rams right before them, and then really because we have Washington this week, so you have Washington. The next game against after Thursday is the Rams on a 10-day rest, but even still.
Well, you never know which Rams team. You never know which Rams team's showing up.
Well, and the Eagles typically do very well against LA.
Mm-hmm.
We spanked the Rams. I feel like we're always playing out in LA too. It's never like we're, LA is at here. It's like we're always going to LA because it's just like the third time, or like the fifth time in like 4 years that we were going to LA.
Well, that makes
Something
sense because they want to try and fill that stadium. It's generally, a hall of ghosts.
Right. Yeah, they do that in our house. It's our house. Well, it's the Eagles' house when we show up because that's like our West Coast nest.
I mean, I think it's our house as in just the league. Like whatever team goes in there generally has more fans than the Rams. I mean, certainly when the Chargers are playing. The Chargers don't have any fans that show up. But with the Rams, everybody has home field going to SoFi.
Yes. That's like going to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes to go to Miami. And it's sort of like becoming looks like going to Vegas.
Yeah, well, especially now, right? that team's about to get blown up.
Yes, it is. And
you think
I'm
Pierce
okay with that.
survives? You think Pierce survives? Or you think
I think Antonio Pierce will get one more year. I think there is something going on inside that Raiders franchise right now, and I don't think it falls on Pierce. I think it falls on the people higher than him because he's not the one that traded away Devontae Adams. He's not the one that brought in Minshew. Granted, he named Minshew the starter. That was his decision, but O'Connell's got a broken hand anyway, so even if O'Connell entered the season as a starter, Minshew would be starting right now as it is. He's not the one that let Josh Jacobs go to Green Bay. Like a lot of these roster decisions are not on him.
Well, and Carr getting, tossed out of there was just before he got there too. So, he wasn't exactly given a good hand for sure, but you're still.
But what do you do? Do you fire the GM and think that the coach is going to be okay? I don't think that works like that. I think a GM does a couple of different things. When you get a brand new GM, he's got to put his mark on it with a new coach. Now, if you hire a brand new GM and you give them a guarantee 3 years, like, hey, we can't fire you, which is really what I would want as a GM.
Sure.
That we can't fire you for 3 years. We are married for 3 years at the very least.
Yeah.
And then your first year, you stay with the same coach. And you assess really what your team is and what it isn't. Yeah. And then you decide because ultimately you don't want to do what Chicago did. Get the quarterback, then have to fire the coach and get a new coach. Exactly. They've done that too many times. So you got to keep the coach to decide whether you want to keep him or not before you get the quarterback. Or else you want to get a rookie coach and a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Then you have the possibility of having a Houston type turnaround. You know what I mean? Where they start to learn together.
And that's why I think Pierce ultimately gets tossed out with the bathwater here. Not necessarily because it's his fault, but he just happened to be in that regime at the wrong time.
And then wouldn't you believe that I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Chicago next year?
Pierce?
That
would be interesting.
You know what I mean? It's because now, because I have to imagine not only is Eberflus gone, but your GM's job has got to go. There's got to be a new GM there.
Well, the thing right now with Chicago is that ownership group has no idea what the hell they're doing because the other day the ownership group even was asked if Eberflus is safe for next year, and he said yes. So the fact that he didn't even say we'll reassess that after the end of the season may lead you to believe that they're going to let Eberflus play out his 4 year.
That's I'll be 100% honest. That's not. I don't care what the ownership says.
But you saw the same thing with Matt Nagy.
When you give them ringing endorsement at the end of the season, the next day you're fired.
I mean, they did the same thing with Matt Nagy, though. Like, Matt Nagy probably should have been fired after year 3, but they let him play out that 4th year of his contract because the Bears ownership does not like to pay 2 coaches at one time. They will let their head coach play out their deal, regardless how sucky they are, and then they just hire a new head coach. They are not one of these teams that likes to pay a guy they just fired plus pay an entire new coaching staff they brought in, which is why I think Eberflus is going to be safe one more year because next year is that final year of his contract. Regardless of how good or bad the team does next year, if they want to fire him in week 6 next year, they can fire him because they only have to pay him the rest of that season, and he's not on the hook for another year versus now, you fire him now, you still got to pay him this year, you still got to pay him next year, but then you also got to pay that entire new staff that you bring in, and that's just not how the Bears operate.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is you have contracts that if you wait another season end up coming up for players that you probably want to keep. So I don't know if you want to just write off this and next season because you're afraid to pay another coach. Because, I mean, when you look at across the league, I forget what the stat was before this year, but it was like $700 million in coaching that isn't coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, clearly that's not an issue. It would be very weird for them to just be like, you know what, I guess we're just going to suck next year too. Like that doesn't make sense for any.
No, I don't think you go in that thinking like that. I mean, to be honest, if you're going to do it, it's probably not the worst thing in the world. Even with a poor record now, and Eberflus, by keeping the coach a second year and the coordinator for a second year under Caleb, that's going to make a difference on your quarterback.
Yeah, that's the key. That's why I think both will be back because they made that mistake with Justin Fields where he had 3 different offensive coordinators in his 4 years. He had one his rookie year, had a new one his second year, had a new one his 3rd year, but he at least was with Luke Getsy for the final 2 years he was in Chicago. But he had 3 different offensive coordinators in his 4 years in Chicago, so he had to learn a new system every year. Even if Chicago continues to perform bad this season, I don't see a situation where they would move on from the OC because they don't want to put Williams in that same position that Fields was in, where you basically learn a new system your rookie year, and instead of having a year to get familiar with it, you're basically throwing another new system at him in year 2, which ultimately makes him basically a rookie again, and you could stunt his development long term.
Well, they did exactly the same thing with Trubisky.
Yep, exactly. Yeah,
so Trubisky,
and that's why.
And the truth of the matter is that I don't know why, like. They fired Nagy after the double doink, right?
No, he made it 3 more years after the double doink. The double doink was actually his first year in Chicago when the Bears went 12-4. So he lasted 3 more years.
The second coach of Trubisky.
Yes, John Fox.
Had to have been.
Yeah, John Fox drafted him because that was the same year that John Fox signed Mike Glennon to that 3-year, $45 million contract when they brought Mike Glennon in. And then Mike Glennon started the first 5 games, and then he got hurt, which is when Trubisky took over.
And Fox Fox had gone to the Super Bowl, so at least he knew how to coach.
Yeah, and like
what he's doing right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's coaching at all. I think he's done.
Yeah, but I got to imagine like guys like that become senior analysts or senior advisors. Like I got to imagine he's with a team. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't with Washington. I might have been where I heard.
Yeah, I can see him moving upstairs for sure.
John Fox, right now, John Fox is not doing anything. He was a senior defensive assistant for the Lions last year, but he is not in the NFL anymore.
Interesting.
All right, I like that. I mean, it's see, and you forget about that name because he's a little older. What's he, like 67, 68?
68, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the 68's not that old. No. I think that the NFL, especially with coaches, has gone younger. They've decided to go younger and try to be more innovative. You know, when I was talking to Jeremiah Trotter, I got to interview Jeremiah Trotter the other night, and I was asking him, as his son is now playing for the Eagles, that what are some of the things that he sees different between the football that he played in comparison to the football that is now. And he's saying that, well, it's going more speed. And when you go more speed, you don't have to be as big. So Jeremiah Trotter himself would have been a big guy, and hence that's why you can't cover. You almost have to have cornerback / linebacker.
Yeah.
Now, in comparison, then
so that right there is why I think there will be a resurgence of big running backs because no one's going to be able to tackle them.
Yeah. Especially after
Right.
seeing what Derrick Henry's done this year in Baltimore after base. I'm not saying like he's ever going to be 100% again, but like he's back to doing what he did when he was in Tennessee. Like if you can get a big running back that stays healthy, yeah, see, give him the damn ball and look what happens.
No, exactly.
That was like Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard was like, he was just stocky and had thighs that were like tree trunks. You know what I mean? So he could push through and guys could carry him. Like he could carry guys through a pile. That's the same thing with Barkley. Like Barkley is, I mean, he's the lower half of his body is so like just muscle.
Ridiculous.
It's all muscle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like that's why he's able to do some wackadoo stuff like jump over, like hurdle people backwards.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because as the linebackers continue to get smaller, right, so that they can get into this coverage, imagine if you had a true fullback like an all-star, right? An A-train running through these guys would be amazing.
Well, that's what I mean. Some of the 49ers are doing that now, and they're creating players that like defensive linebackers now are playing fullback. They have to report in and they get to go run and all they're doing is shooting the gap and blowing somebody up.
Yep.
You know, and that's paving the way for a lot of these things. I mean, it's like it almost goes back to that's what makes me think some of these old school coaches are going to start to be able to leverage their knowledge of the game. Because the pendulum swings all the time.
Of course.
You know what I mean? I mean, this goes back to, Walsh when he started the West Coast offense, that the dink and dunk was just like running.
Yep.
The ball. And ultimately, he won 4 Super Bowls with that. I mean, you could say, I mean, not him himself, but like Seifert did it. And, what's his name? 1-1-2. Not Mary. I keep wanting to say Mariota, but it's not. The Italian guy. He won one as well. So it's like that, and that all off of that offense. Well, that offense is you could say that the entire NFL works off of that offense now.
Oh, no question.
That it's all kind of West Coast offense. But I mean, I don't know. I think that the Eagles are absolutely not West Coast offense. That they run the ball to set up for the big play. And this whole, whether you give it to him, this play option stuff, that's like, okay, that's college. Yeah. That's like doing the pitch. Like, I'm just about to get hit, pitch to you, and then you run the ball. The very rugby-esque kind of stuff. And I don't know if it's going to, I don't know when it's going to change. But it's going to start to change.
And I think one of the coaches that kind of falls into that category that you could see back sooner rather than later is Ron Rivera.
No.
I don't. Yeah.
Health issues is what's going to stop him.
Well, as a senior defensive assistant, though, where he doesn't have a lot of stress, like a lot of responsibility. Like just because of how good of a defensive coach he is, how good of like a linebacker coach he is, you bring him to a team that has a young head coach that has like a young defense, and you just kind of use him as like the knowledge to kind of teach the younger guys what to do.
Yeah, as a consultant, I can see that.
Yeah.
Let's see, and that's kind of what I would do. I mean, that's why the Eagles chose Vic Fangio.
Mm-hmm.
That they said, Vic, this is your last stop. You wanted to be close to home. You're now close to home. I mean, he lives up in the Poconos, so it's only like a 2-hour ride, and we want you to be the coach until you decide that you don't want to be a coach anymore. I'm not a big fan of the fact that he doesn't blitz, and his blitzes aren't real blitzes. They're just still 4-man rushes, but he he secretly drops somebody out into coverage. But I can't argue with the way his defense has been playing. It's like they have been doing the things they need to do. They don't always get to the quarterback, but they've just won their last 3 road games
Mm-hmm.
by 20 or more points.
Mm-hmm.
That's never happened in Eagles history. So, and that's mainly because the defense. The defense, they gave a turnover on the 9-yard line, and they didn't score.
Yeah.
They wound up getting the ball back. The defense got the ball back in the end zone after Zeke fumbled.
Yep.
So it's like those are the types of things that are really going to gel the team together. When the defense can pick up the slack, and then when the defense gives them the opportunity to score, we've been putting the points in. We've been scoring touchdowns. It's like at the end of the game when you got the interception or the fumble and you get a field goal, it's like, okay, well, we're playing our third stringers anyways, for the whole fourth quarter. How huge is that for a Thursday night game? Coming. That all of the starters went to were like on the plane before the game was over. Because they were showered and fresh. That's amazing stuff. So it's like especially going up against, right now, these two teams could arguably be in the top 4 of the NFC. It's like San Francisco won yesterday, but that was like luck almost.
Yeah.
Especially when Jake Moody misses 3 field goals, and all of a sudden he decides he wants to make one.
Yeah, exactly.
But did you see any of that San Francisco game? Did you see any of that San Francisco game?
It's just like they had that one on and the Washington game on.
It is amazing. It is amazing how slow Christian McCaffrey looked yesterday. Like you can tell.
I think he would be all decoy.
You can tell his legs are like shot right now.
Sure. I mean, he's been out for a while. Like, it's going to take you a couple of games to get
not only that, but like being that he has tendonitis in both Achilles, I don't think he's going to ever be explosive again because all it takes is for one bad cut and one of those is going to pop. Like, I don't see him being the explosive player he was even last year. Like, if you saw how slow he was yesterday, I don't foresee a situation where he's ever going to be the type of player he ever was again if these things continue to bother him. There's just no way he can be.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, right? But
hey, listen, Costa Rica does wonders to people.
Exactly.
That's where that comes to. And you know what else does wonders to people? True Fusion Gym.
I mean, I suppose we might as well do that part, right? Here we go. True Fusion Gym right here in the Pacific Northwest. Free 5-day pass if you use the QR code on the screen. Pilates, boot camp, yoga at any of the 3 locations, whether it's Bellevue, Ballard, or University Village. Find your edge at True Fusion Gym. And of course, if you like sports betting, you can do it right alongside us here on Coast to Coast by using the QR code on the screen, up to 125% of your first 3 deposits and a 10% bet guarantee. Some restrictions do apply, but bet alongside us right here. It's funny. The old coaches that I think should be brought back is I'm surprised an NFL team hasn't picked up Jeff Fisher to do special teams. Not as a head coach, but just as a special teams coach with all of the changes to the kicking rules and how creative he was anyway. I'm really surprised that they haven't really given him a look. Now, I understand that he is a chief advisor for Tennessee's AFL team. So, I mean, he has a job.
Yeah,
so
I think that's why.
But I'm surprised that somebody hasn't taken a flyer on him or at least made the phone call, because there's no way he's making enough with an AFL team that an NFL team couldn't poach him.
Yeah, I mean, he was with the UFL. He was in the UFL with Michigan, too. He was the head coach and then GM of the Michigan Panthers, too. So he's actually helped orchestrate that new kickoff rule because that's the rule they put in play in the USFL.
That's what I'm saying, is he has familiarity with it. He's always been a very creative special teams guy, right? I mean, that's how he got his head coaching deals anyway. So I'm surprised that he hasn't landed himself back in the NFL with just the way he plays special teams and all the new special teams rules, I think he could really exploit some of that before they fine tune some of them rules. He would be the reason why they had to change parts of the rules.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, I just want to mention this to everybody. Happy Veterans Day to everybody who has served. We appreciate it. Being a veteran myself, I thank you as you guys would thank me.
Absolutely.
I don't like it when people thank me for my service. It's like, oh, you're welcome. I did it for you. That's not me. I did not do it for you. I did it for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to college. That's why I joined the military.
Hey, whatever
some
works.
people go by the jail or sale program. It was that was a whole different world back then.
So we don't actually get to see who anybody is, but I'm assuming this is Joe.
That looks like Joe. That's not showing us right now, Joe. But I'm going to assume that is a Joe statement because he's like, right. I don't care. Even with the backup quarterback, it's going to be whatever. And I'm like, yeah.
I mean, I feel like it has to be, right?
Hey, listen. If you give somebody 5 turnovers, that first one was the killer.
Yeah.
The punt.
Yeah.
Yeah. The punt and it's just.
If you lose the turnover battle like that, you better win, right? You better.
Oh,
win.
Yeah. I mean, but the fact that they, like I said, the turnovers that we had, was, I mean, like I said, we gave them the ball on the 9-yard line, and then they gave it back to us.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was, there were just a few ugly games in that way. That Lions game was the same way. It was like everybody was just trying not to score. They're like, oh, we drove the field. Hot potato, you can have the ball. Like, it didn't make any sense. And there was a lot of it this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think as I'm going to try to sit up a little bit because I can't stand sitting the way I am. There we go.
I mean, the Viking game too had 6 turnovers. You had Sam Darnold throwing 3 interceptions with 2 of them in the end zone, and then Mac Jones turned the ball over 3 times in the last 7 minutes of the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just some really ugly football this weekend. And I mean, it was funny because in the first, the early time slot, I should say, every underdog was hitting in the first half of those games.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're watching that, like, oh, okay, Vegas got one over on everybody. It reminded me of week 2 where all the underdogs hit for whatever reason. And it just seemed like this weekend was going to be similar when you had all of these bad matchups that really looked like you knew who was going to win most of the games. And the first half of the early time slot, you're like, oh, okay, Vegas is out here trying to win.
Well, and I mean, but a lot of the games all came back to the very end of the game.
Yeah.
I want to say that it was, obviously Pittsburgh won, Detroit won.
Yep.
That San Francisco game went down to the wire, didn't it? I mean, they won it at the end.
Yep.
I didn't see the Seattle game. I don't even know.
We
had a bye week, so we didn't lose. Hey.
I mean, you look at the Minnesota game with Jackson.
Hey, let's check in with Jay. Let's see where Jay's at.
It is nothing. It's a whole lot of nothing. Just like some Cowboys.
Exactly. That's it didn't show up for work today. That's what they did.
You look at the Minnesota game yesterday against Jacksonville. Minnesota had the ball for almost 40 minutes of that game to compare to Jacksonville barely having 20. Minnesota had 438 yards of offense. Jacksonville had like 170. And Minnesota won 12-7 because they had 3 interceptions, 2 of them coming in the end zone, and they got 3 of their 4 field goals in the fourth quarter. So that was another game that basically came down to the wire because Minnesota just kept self-destructing like they did against Indianapolis the week before in the first half.
Yeah. No, and Joe, I'm with you here. I actually thought Rush was going to – I thought he was going to be better than he was. I didn't expect him to win, right, just because there's too many other issues with this team. But, man, did he look bad.
Actually, and the truth of the matter is that he was like 9-1 going into that game. Cooper.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, he's played incredibly well in that backup role. And, man, he looked like he had never taken a start before out there. And it wasn't even anything you guys were necessarily doing. He was just making bad decisions at times.
And there was like poor play calling. I mean, I know that True Blue, who was the guy I sit next to, and is
Oh, okay.
really, really like a Dallas Cowboy. Like he knows football from the Chiefs, from the stands. Like it's just like he was able to say, he's like, all right, this is who we're going to, and of course the pass went right to that person.
Oh,
He's
nice.
like, it's too predictable. He's like, if I can see it, that means they can see it. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel the same way. It's like, listen, I know that if I'm able to see something as a fan that doesn't get paid to go to these games, that they definitely, can see it. And I can imagine that. And it was funny because it was the one guy who I guess returns the punts now for them, and he's got some speed, but they can't ever get him the ball.
DeVonta Turpin?
And every time they do get him the ball, Turpin,
Yeah, Turpin.
and when they do get him a ball, it's on the screen, and the screens don't work anymore. I don't know if any other team in the NFL is having some success with them.
Detroit is the screen pass master.
Yeah,
That
they
team,
do.
whatever they do, that team could run screens 40 times a game, and they would probably have success on 30 of them.
So, but what are they pulling 3 of the linemen?
No, they literally
That's the only thing
they go to Penny Sewell's side because he's like the best offensive lineman when it comes to blocking. They literally throw the screen the same side every time. They go right to Penny Sewell's side, and he will just take 3 guys with him and just clear out the middle, and they just follow straight through the middle for 15, 20 yards at a clip.
I mean,
you want Kellen Moore back.
Detroit
Like
will pull a guard. Detroit will pull a guard out.
Yeah, like last night, the only reason why Detroit got back in that game is they ran like almost every single drive in the fourth quarter was all screenplays. And it was Amon-Ra St. Brown. It
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
was like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. The whole fourth quarter against Houston was just screen pass. And it was just like follow Penny Sewell up the middle for 5, 10, 15, 20 yards. That team is like the screen pass master.
Hey, if I may interject in the moment of silence that he gave me for a second, I just want to wish Pags a happy Veterans Day and all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service. If it's not for our veterans, past and present, this country wouldn't be where it is. And thank you from one veteran to another veteran. Pags, I love you, and thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you as well. I did this a little while ago because we weren't sure if you were going to actually make it here on the show or not. So I was just saying how I hate it when people thank me for my service. Because I didn't do it for you. I did it for me.
No. Jay's showing up just like his Cowboys. He's coming in for the last 7 minutes.
Hey, listen, Jay, I would say that you and Caleb probably both should stop with the nails.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
there's like a failing trend with that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I never
Since you started painting your nails, the Cowboys have sucked.
But but one thing I did want to say, Pags, damn. Number one, I know you asked if I was going to be on the show. Look, man, bro, we didn't even have a quarterback. So I don't know. Don't think you came in and did something because our team sucks. Number one. Number two, we have no quarterback. And number three, I got Micah Parsons actually coming out and actually kind of stating the truth. I don't care about Mike McCarthy. He can take a hike. What I care about are the players that are here, that are devoting themselves to the team. And this is the leadership we get. It might have even been a big FU to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones as a couple. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it was quiet in that stadium from the door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally the Cowboys fans were laughing when I was turning around and yelling up to Jerry. I'm like, Jerry, love what you're doing with the team. I hope you live forever.
Yeah. And then it's just to tap onto that. You know, CeeDee Lamb comes out and says, Jerry, could you put some curtains up? I lost the touchdown grab in the end zone because I couldn't see.
I mean, you could tell he couldn't see.
Yeah, but you know what? That's why you get a visor. You want them little tinted ass visors.
That would not have mattered there.
You don't think it would have mattered?
No.
Not a chance in hell. No.
Yeah, it was dead center. I mean, he literally that was a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
That was absolutely. And then when it wasn't a touchdown pass, it was a straight interception. Both of them didn't see it.
Yeah,
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
saw it. Like, and I've played with the sun in your eyes, like the ball disappears.
No,
Like,
I get that.
Like you're there and you're just like, I know it's coming.
Yeah.
I know it's on its way. I have no idea where it is. So yeah.
Well, you know what? But that, I mean, how many times has that happened at all?
I mean,
I
not
got to
enough
imagine
to do
that.
anything about it.
I have to imagine that Dallas did something very funny. They wanted the kickoff. They wanted the ball when they won the toss. And those types of situations, like if you know that, hey, the sun's going to be going down a little bit and showing down this end, are we going to make it to the second quarter? So let's do it there. We want the second quarter, them to go that way. That's what the Eagles did.
Yeah.
The Eagles did that. So it worked in their favor. A decision that was made that really the Cowboys won the toss, elected to receive. That means the Eagles were the ones that chose the side.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they chose the side. They chose wisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would always defer the kickoff because I do want number one, I want the side, but I also want the ball to start off the second half. So I don't know why they elected to receive, unless they thought they could set a tone or something. But I don't know what they were thinking. They got Cooper Rush and Trey Lance out there trying to set it.
Joe, I know that you just said that you haven't seen the team this bad before, but who was the guy with the curly hair and short and fat and was not a very good coach at all? Those teams stunk.
And to be
he
honest,
wasn't 1-15. Jerry Johnson was one, or Jimmy Johnson was 1-15, but he had a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, Jimmy Johnson. I for all the as much as I didn't like him when he left Miami, he had a wife. You know, and he's like, he's like, hey, listen, I'm going to Dallas, and she's like, what do you mean you're going to Dallas? He's like, well, I just got a job in Dallas, and you ain't coming with me. He's like, turned to the curb.
That's right.
And went to the Cowboys. And so it's like, but he wanted to be 100% focused on the job. You know what I mean? And so when you do that, he had a plan, and 1-15 wasn't a big deal. But was it Wayne Kiffin? Is that his name?
Lane
Not
Kiffin.
Kiffin. Yeah, he was just like the little roly-poly fat guy, you know, with the curly hair and the glasses.
Yeah. Oh no, I think you're thinking of Dave Campo.
Yeah, Dave Campo.
Oh, okay.
That's him.
Yeah, you're
That
thinking
team
of Dave
stunk.
Campo.
They stunk. P.U. Did they
Oh no,
stink?
they did. No, trust me. And I think Dave Campo, if I'm not mistaken, came in right after Barry Switzer. I think Campo was the next head coach after that. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's the order of it. But you know, this Cowboys team we have right now, it's not the worst team. That 1-15 was pretty crappy, but you're right. He did have a plan to get better. We don't have a plan right now. So I guess if you want to look at it from the perspective of we suck and we don't have a plan, then yeah, this probably is the worst team.
Well, see, and this soundbite is perfect for that.
No, actually, Dave Campbell came in after Chan Gailey.
Well, what do you mean?
Given that you saw what the team looks like without Dak, how do you tell when you look at the difference? What do you think about Dak?
I don't want to be sarcastic, but you got the same arithmetic I've got? We've won 3 games with Dak. Okay, so I'm just saying we weren't playing well with Dak at all.
If Dak cannot come back, how much does that hurt your hopes for this year?
Well, I don't want to deal in hypotheticals, but you know, anybody that loses their top quarterback has some adjustments to make, and they're usually adjusting uphill. And so I thought that basically we'd look better tonight without Dak. I thought we'd look better on offense than we looked without Dak. Seen Cooper play better than we played tonight. Philadelphia's got a lot to do with that. That's what it is.
I mean, I've seen my 11-year-old play better quarterback than Cooper Rush the first half.
Look, what the hell is
That he thought they were going to be better with Dak.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. What adjustments does he think he can possibly make? Both your backup quarterbacks can't do a damn thing. So what adjustment are you possibly going to make?
So to be fair, he did go on in that press conference to say that he could make some changes, but he didn't know if that would actually make this team better. So basically, he sounds exasperated for where it is they are. But you know, again, for the rest of the league, it's enjoyable.
I would say this, you know, at this point, if I'm Jerry, he won't do this, but if I'm Jerry, I'm like, you know what, just roll with what we got. We'll probably lose an assload of more games. We got a tough schedule, and then let's just fight for draft picks, and then hope to God next year we can get better. I mean, this year is really a wash.
Yeah,
So
the problem is that you gave $260 million to somebody
oh, that's
who
true.
doesn't deserve it.
Oh, I agree. 100%. 100% I
Well,
agree.
then, the comments that Micah Parsons made yesterday too about McCarthy, does that put his future in Dallas in jeopardy too?
Done. That dude ain't coming
McCarthy's done
back.
anyway.
Yeah.
I
all
understand
we're
that,
talking
but
about is when his departure is.
I understand that, but is Jerry Jones going to look at that as he's still your boss? You can't really publicly kind of put your boss down like that. Is Jerry Jones going to use that as a way to get Micah Parsons out of Dallas, basically saying you didn't respect the coach you had? Why do we want you here?
Nah,
if
he
he
ain't
wants to
doing
get him
that.
out, all he has to do is let him go because the contract's coming up.
Yeah.
So,
that's
that's
right.
not a hard exit. And other teams would want the guy. It's not like finding a trade partner would be difficult. So, I mean, if he wants,
He'd come right to Philadelphia. I'd be willing to bet that he'd come right to Philadelphia.
I mean, I would.
You know what, though? Interestingly enough,
teams that would want him.
right. Interestingly enough, though, I was talking to Trotter about that, about Micah Parsons, and he said specifically, I'd like for him to be more involved in football. That maybe Micah Parsons doing his podcast and everything else is part of the reason why he's not playing up to snuff.
I mean, he had a game though. Like he was the only one that showed up.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought he did pretty well.
Yeah,
Just that
I thought that he was doing his interview for the Eagles.
Yeah.
I could
That's
see
what
that.
I thought.
He's checking out other teams right now. He's like, look, out of this 53-man roster, I'm the only one that's playing football right now.
Yeah. I mean, he's not wrong.
I mean, you can't.
I think Sam is playing a good game. And I think Zach Martin on the O-line.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other – I mean, Ferguson as well. I think they are playing. There are guys out there that are trying. It's just you don't have enough in the tank to compete.
This would be a
That's
amazing pickup for Washington.
Especially since they got Lattimore too.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like all of a sudden that team becomes real scary.
Hell yeah, they do.
That being said, if you've been hanging out with us, certainly more than Jay, be sure to like and subscribe.
Jay, can I ask you an honest question without pissing you off?
No,
I swear to God, if you say one bad thing, I'm gonna come through this.
It's not about the Cowboys. I just want to ask you a question.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, I have a great beard. Yes.
Whenever you're waiting for an appointment, why can't you be on the show until the person gets there?
Because the guy said I'm 5 minutes. I'm on my way. It's not my fault. He started up late.
But you have a doorbell, don't you?
Shit. Are you?
You're
And we'd
pissing him
like-
off on Veterans Day.
Talk at the same time. Damn it.
Say-
Oh,
hey,
give me a
thank
fine.
you for,
Fine. Somebody needs to find him. Like find him like $50 since he ain't rich. So find him $50. Damn it.
hey, thank you for all 5 minutes of your service on this show today. If you're watching on Roku, stay tuned for the next hour. Otherwise, we will see y'all tomorrow. Take it easy, everybody.
Take care.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and